everybody, it's Chris Eads, and our line is Wootini, here with another Gay Gamer video podcast for you. This week, I went to the movies and I saw Twisters, which was very entertaining. It was exactly what I wanted from it. I wanted a big, action-packed summer blockbuster movie, and it delivered. It's, I will say that it has this big thrilling opening sequence, and then it sets up this plot where the lead character, she's going to help her old friend, and she comes back to Oklahoma and is going to help him, but then there is a twist and things change, and it turns out that her nice friend actually has a dark secret, a little shadiness on the side, and the asshole YouTuber played by Glenn Powell is secretly a super nice guy and awesome. And then once you get to those reveals, the plot just sort of stops for a bit, and there's nothing happens for a while, and then finally because I realized halfway through the movie I was like, there's been no forward momentum to this plot whatsoever. There's been no plot developments. What is going on here? And then they, for the last half hour or so, they're like, oh, hey, wait, we had a plot. Let's get back to that, and we'll actually have some idea of what we're doing and where we're going and what we're going to try to do and move the plot along. But I will say that for that is a problem, but it's not as big a problem because there's, tornadoes keep smashing things up, and it's all very exciting and thrilling, and the special effects are great. And the actors are good. They can sell the technobabble dialogue, and they're likable enough that, even when they do jerk dickish things, you're like, okay. And Glenn Powell, super hot still. But I recommend seeing this in the theater. It's very entertaining. It's a big summer blockbuster. It's fun. Great effects, great action sequences, but if you wait and stream this on your TV, it's really not going to have the same effect. You need to see this on a nice big screen with loud surround sound, and I definitely suggest going to the theater if you have any interest at all in seeing this. Because if you wait for it to be on TV, you're going to be like, what were you talking about? That was just okay. Because I think on TV it will be just okay. As for games, so as you know, the last couple episodes I've been talking about doing this Star Path. I finished the Inside Out thing. I've been pushing on the Star Path. I've been like, gotta do it, gotta get all my rewards. And I realized there's a month left, and I was like, oh, I have plenty of time. I don't need to push so hard. I can play other things. I don't need to just play Disney. But I was very determined to do the one that was craft 2 balloon arches, and I was like, okay, but you need 60 flowers for each balloon arch, and it took me a few days to get all of those different colors. But then once I did that, I noticed that there were no more Star Path duties after that. They weren't loading any new ones, and I did a couple more small ones, and then all of a sudden it was oh, I've only got 3 things left to do, and I've got weeks left to do them. So I'm like, I can take a step back. It's fine. I can play more Star Wars Jedi Survivor, because I knew I was very close to the end. And I did actually finish it the other day. So the thing is, though, is, as you might recall in previous episodes, I ran into a roadblock doing the bounty hunter side quest, and she wasn't giving me any more clues as to where to find bounty hunters. And I looked online, and some people were saying it was a bug, and some people said, oh, just do more story missions, whatever. And I was like, oh, I hope it's not a bug. And I mean, those posts saying it was a bug were for a year ago when the game first came out. And I'm like, you should have patched that by now, right? That's one of the advantages of playing a game a year after it comes out. It has all the patches and everything should work fine. So what I did was I did a story mission, and I did the Dagangara boss fight, and then came back to the saloon, and they're like, oh, there's new conversation to be had, and one of them was Cage being like, hey, I've got a new bounty for you. And I was like, thank you. And that one was actually on Kobo, so I went and took care of that. Then I came back, And she's like, oh yeah, there's another one on Jeddah. And I was like, well, I'm heading to Jeddah for the story. So I'll go to Jeddah and I'll do that. And then maybe I'll do the story while I'm there. Unfortunately, landing on Jeddah, you immediately are thrown into the story. You can't do anything else. And the story, this happened in last week's episode, I mentioned this, there was a boss fight and everything, and I was like, oh my. And then comes the big boss fight. Not the final boss fight, but the hardest one in the game. And this is where I have to say, I enjoyed Jedi Survivor just like I did Fallen Order. Great characters, animation, performances, the gameplay's fine, everything's fun. Except this game, I don't remember if Fallen Order had the same problem, but Jedi Survivor, the balance is so bad. Like, you might recall episodes ago, I mentioned I did a side quest and ran into a Rancor and it kicked my ass. That was very early in the game. And I said, well, I'll come back later after I've unlocked some more skills and I have more health stims to last longer in a fight, and I'll try again. Except, later in the game, while on a mission, I ran into another Rancor, kicked my ass again a few times. And I said, you know what? It's optional. I'm going to go the other direction and fight the bosses instead of bothering with the Rancor. And the boss fight, 3 against 1, I was able to beat them all, and I still couldn't beat a Rancor. And I'm like, what the hell, game? And like the Dagon Gera boss fight, no problem. However, fighting Darth Vader, oh my god, he kicked my ass so hard. The problem is twofold. One, Darth Vader, super overpowered and ridiculously overpowered. Second, you're not fighting as Cal, who you've been leveling up and getting all the help, whatever, and the skills. You're fighting as Seer, who has just the one lightsaber and no real skill. She has a couple of skills that you're taught, but she just has one lightsaber and 4 health stims. So he would kill me because I didn't have enough health stims. If I had the 11, if she got to have the same 11 health stims, I might have made it through. But he kicked my ass every time. It was really bad. And I said, you know what? After like half a dozen times, I said, you know what? Forget it. I'm lowering the difficulty. Which I had done once before in the game. I don't think I mentioned this before. Like weeks ago, I was doing some exploring and I found a health stim chest. And I was like, ooh, another health stim, yay. But it was guarded by like 2 big monsters. And I was like, ugh. And I tried it a few times, but they were kicking my ass. And every time I died, I restarted from the save point and had to do all this annoying platforming to get back to the monsters. And after like a bunch of times, I was just like, this is stupid and annoying. I'm just lowering the difficulty just so I can get that health stim. And I lowered it to Padawan, which is easy difficulty. And I killed them so quickly and easily. It was absurd how much easier it was. I put it back up to normal to play the rest of the game. But when I got to Darth Vader, I was like, this is not working. I am not making any progress. He's just literally kicking my ass every time. So I lowered it to Padawan difficulty. Unfortunately, he still kept kicking my ass. So after like another half a dozen times, and this is like the next day that I went back to try again. And I'm like, okay, no. And I ended up having to lower it to story mode just to get through this fight scene. It was absurd. It still wasn't even that easy in story mode. It was much easier, but it wasn't like you just went shh and he went down. And the problem was that at the end, you have this very dramatic cutscene and everything, and as the story develops, and it did not have the emotional power I think it would have had if I'd been able to do it like the Dagon Gera boss fight in one try. Having to do it like a dozen or so times made me annoyed, and I did not enjoy the cutscene that came after. I was like, this is annoying and whatever. So as I continued, I got more. After I did that, I did more bounty hunters, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to do the bounty hunters because, like I've said many times in this vidcast, when I finish a game, I like it to be done. I like to do all my side things before I do the final mission and have end credits. So I was like, I'm doing the bounty hunters. And at one point, we're going somewhere, and Greaves was like, wait, we're not going to Tantalor? Like, what is going on? And I'm just like, shut up, Greaves. We're doing the bounty hunters. So I did the bounty hunters, and then I killed the last droid bounty hunter, And I went back to Cage, and it turned out there was a twist. And then there's another fight, which, again, no problem. I mean, it was challenging, but I still did it in one try. This is not a boss fight, even though it is technically a boss fight. And then there was another twist at the end of that. Then I was like, okay, now we're done, and I can go finish the story. So I went to Tanalorr, lovely planet, and did the final boss fight. And it's all very dramatic, and I died a few times, and it was getting really frustrating, and I decided I didn't want the same thing to happen at the very end of the game that happened with the Darth Vader fight. I was like, I'm lowering this to Padawan. I'm not going to do this like a dozen times. You know, maybe a half a dozen. But if I have to do this a dozen times, I'm just going to get annoyed, and it's going to ruin the end of the game because I'm going to be all annoyed and frustrated. So I was like, after a few tries, like 3 or 4 tries, I was like, you know what? Lowering it to Padawan. And then sure enough, with Padawan, I was able to get through the fight. It still wasn't easy, but I was able to get through it so that I could enjoy the ending of the game, which was very sad, tragic, and emotional. And so I am now done with Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And as I said, final thoughts, it's a great game. If you liked Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor is more of the same. I just don't remember Fallen Order being so unbalanced with the boss fights and things. It's really frustrating. I do remember a couple of boss fights. There was a boss fight like in the middle of Fallen Order where I had to lower the difficulty, but I don't remember if I had to lower it for the final battle. Maybe I did, because I think it was Darth Vader, and I think maybe I had to lower it a bit. But I'm just appreciative that they give you that option. Otherwise, I would never have finished this game, and I would be annoyed and irritated. So I look forward to the next game. I'm hoping they're making this a trilogy, and we get a little more of Cal's adventure, maybe with some kind of closure to close out the trilogy. I just hope that they can balance the enemies a little bit better next time around. Because I feel like the side mission bosses should maybe be more challenging because those are optional. The main story bosses shouldn't be quite so fucking challenging given that they want you to finish the story. But I guess they do it and say, well, you can lower the difficulty if you need to. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to. You should balance the game better, but whatever. So I originally had planned, after I finished Star Wars Jedi Survivor, because I knew I was going to finish it soon, I'm like, there's nothing coming out soon, so I was going to go ahead and buy an Xbox and Starfield and start diving into that space exploration. Unfortunately, now my friend is going to lend me a game for the Switch, so I said, you know what, save your money. Next week I'll start playing that. And in the meantime, there's a new update for No Man's Sky that apparently like updates the planets and gives them new biomes and creatures and all kinds of cool stuff. So I can check that out to kill time until next week. So come back next episode and I'll tell you what that game is and what I think of it after I've played it for like probably a day. See you then. Bye!